Arif Dirlik's essay Predicament and Promise delves into the potential establishment of a new global order with a focus on the influential role that the Global South could play. It traces the historical evolution of this concept, paying special attention to its roots in the popular term of the 1960s and 1970s known as the Third World. While acknowledging that the term Third World is no longer relevant geopolitically or as a political project, the essay suggests that it can still serve as inspiration for current initiatives aiming to empower the Global South in reshaping global relations. Several powerful societies, including China, India, Brazil, and South Africa, have motivations to align with the Global South, potentially becoming key players in this reconfiguration. The essay explores the relationship between one such society, the People's Republic of China, and the Global South. In examining the term Global South, it is essential to explore its historical origins, intellectual underpinnings, ideological implications, and political projects it signifies. By understanding these aspects, we can discern the potential contributions of this term towards specific objectives. Given the pressing need for alliances that transcend traditional developmental boundaries, the hope is that the concept of the Global South points towards an alternative global alliance. The term Global South, particularly its South component, originates from the 1970s and is intricately connected to post-Second World War discourse on modernization and revolutionary movements. It emerged as a way to describe societies facing challenges in achieving the economic and political goals of both capitalist and socialist modernity. While closely related to the earlier term, the Global South gained popularity through the Brand Commission reports in 1980 and 1983, emphasizing the need for substantial capital infusion from the North to the South for modernization. The addition of global to South likely stems from the discourse of globalization emerging in the 1990s and initiatives like the United Nations Development Program's Forging a Global South in 2003 have further brought attention to this concept. The evolving usage of the term provides insights into the continuities and discontinuities in the global positioning of the South over the past 50 years, along with shifts in its ideological and political role on the global stage. While some interpret the term geographically, noting that developed countries, with few exceptions like Australia and New Zealand, lie north of the developing or at least developed ones, it is crucial to recognize that this geographical designation is not strictly literal. Like other geographical terms for ideological and political spaces, the concept of the South is complex and subject to change over time. The contemporary context is marked by the absence of the socialist alternative, resulting in one dominant power and ideology, neoliberalism. This situation places increased burdens on the South, both in terms of the challenges it faces and the potential role it may play in addressing global issues. The problems and political projects associated with the South are subject to variation over time, influenced by internal and external changes as well as shifts in material and ideological landscape. The term Third World, introduced by Alfred Sauvy in 1952, originally aimed to distinguish the previously colonized or neo-colonized world from the evolving realms of capitalism and socialism. By the 1960s, it had become a central political slogan for the radical left. Initially, it implied that third world societies had to choose between the paths of capitalism or socialism as they embarked on the journey toward modernity. Despite this, there was a prevailing assumption, eventually realized, that the socialist path was a temporary deviation with capitalism seen as the ultimate force bringing history to its conclusion. The socialist example, closely associated with anti imperialism, significantly influenced national liberation movements within the framework of the Third World idea. The Third World was not exclusively tied to capitalism or socialism, it was also envisioned as a distinct third path to modernity. This perspective gained prominence during the Bandung Conference of 1955, emphasizing the value of Third World national liberation movements as an alternative to both capitalism and Stalinist socialism. By 1968, the term Third World had transformed from merely an empirical description to a revolutionary concept, presenting a way out of the challenges posed by capitalism and existing socialism. A decade, the situation underwent a notable shift. The Brand Commission, established in 1977, expressed concern about an impending global economic and environmental crisis. Led by Willy Brandt, a former Berlin mayor and German chancellor, the Commission advocated increased support for the South as a crucial measure to avert catastrophe. Within a decade, the perception of the South changed from a potential world savior to an object of compassion requiring salvation for the benefit of humanity. This new path deviated from the liberationist impulses of global revolutionary movements, coinciding with the emergence of neoliberal economic policies, the Reagan-Thatcher revolution, the rise of East-Southeast Asian capitalisms, and the retreat of socialism. The Brand Commission's global neo-Keynesian approach faced a quick demise, replaced by neoliberal economic policies enforced by US-dominated institutions like the World Bank and the International Monetary Fund during the 1980s. This transformation culminated in the Washington Consensus, associated with the shift from governmental aid to marketization. In the 1990s, globalization became a prominent discourse, marking a shift for the South to seek development within the global capitalist economy. This transition also signaled a change in the concept of development, moving away from the national development towards a focus on specific sectors and populations capable of successful participation in the global economy, often within urban networks interconnected on a global scale. In the 1990s, the dynamics of development underwent a significant shift with globalization, challenging not only the earlier concept of the three worlds, but also the validity of the North-South distinction. This transformation involves the crossing of boundaries between North and South by various networks, leading to the relocation of certain Southern elements in the North and vice versa. This includes migrations across developmental boundaries and the emergence of pockets of poverty reminiscent of the South. These territorial differences are now influenced by emerging social inequalities, such as those related to ethnicity, class, and gender. The South becomes a site of internal conflicts similar to the North but lacking some institutional risks. Addressing the South's problems necessitates global or at least regional solutions that transcend national boundaries. The 2003 UNDP project, Forging a Global South, introduces a new development paradigm emphasizing self-determination for the South. Rather than relying on assistance from the North, Southern countries are encouraged to cooperate with each other through South-South cooperation. This decentralized cooperation may also include collaboration with countries outside the South, termed triangular cooperation. The suggestion is that assert its autonomy and visibility globally, akin to the self-assertion inherent in the concept of the Third World. However, the contemporary situation is different, marked by the absence of the Second World, socialism, and a unipolar military power but chaotic economic, political, and cultural alignments. Achieving autonomous development within the confines of global capitalism, the South must invent economic alternatives to neoliberalism. Paradoxically, this may involve revisiting some economic and political alignments of the earlier three worlds spatialization. The philosophy of self help requires autonomy at the national and regional levels, supported by a global institutional arrangement that respects and aids such autonomy rather than subverting it with universal neoliberal market principles. Obstacles to autonomous development also exist within southern societies, with groups and classes already integrated into transitional economies having a stake in their perpetuation. Despite these challenges, there are commonalities among southern societies, including shared experiences of colonialism, neocolonialism, and marginalization, and in some cases, cooperation in past struggles of global justice. The UNDP Global South Project aligns with renewed activities like the World Social Forum and the formation of the Group of 20 in 2003, representing influential southern societies. Collaborating with radical forces in the north, the south has become more visible in global political activities, participating in protests against organizations like the World Trade Organization and against events like the war in Iraq. However, the affinity among the third world societies also involves global power. Successful southern societies like China and India may play a leadership role in the south, benefiting from this position to enhance their global power. This competition for power among southern societies could potentially undermine unity and invite external manipulation, notably from the United States, openly hostile to any signs of southern resurgence. Over the past 2 years, there has been frequent mention of Beijing consensus as an alternative to the neoliberal Washington consensus proposed by Joshua Cooper Ramo, a former Time magazine foreign news editor, now working for Goldman Sachs in Beijing. The Beijing consensus suggests a Chinese model of development that has achieved global economic success while maintaining national autonomy and goals. Despite being criticized for its ideological nature and contradictions, Chinese of their own perspectives in this notion. The emphasis on autonomous development within global capitalism has attracted attention in the global south. Examining the case of the People's Republic of China reveals both possibilities and challenges for the global south. China has attained significant development within the neoliberal global economy without entirely sacrificing autonomy, national development goals, and ideals of equity and justice inherited from socialist experiments. While some talk about a Chinese model of development, replicating such a model may be elusive due to its unique historical, revolutionary, and regional context. Nevertheless, the commitment of China to autonomy, equity, and social justice carries ideological importance as it counters the hegemonic neoliberal order. The Beijing Consensus, rather than offering a model, provides a paradigm where the defense of self-determination aligns with successful globalization. This suggests a potential alternative to the Washington Consensus, not in economic or social policies, but in reshaping the global political environment that influences economic development. China's opening to the world has coexisted with the preservation of its political autonomy and sovereignty, challenging expectations from groups ranging from US conservatives to labor leaders. The complex history of US China relations reflects the American aspiration to convert China to capitalism, problematic when successful. This dynamic is part of the larger global project of converting the globe into capitalism under the influence of advanced capitalist societies. Contrary to the ideas of globalization ideologues, the quest for autonomy and self-determination persists globally, potentially gaining renewed strength with the proliferation of global institutions and communication. This pursuit involves not only maintaining internal economic controls, but also adopting a multilateral approach to global relationships. The Beijing Consensus suggests an approach to global relations, seeks a new global order based on economic ties while recognizing political and cultural differences, regional and national practices within a common global framework. Unlike homogenizing universalisms, This approach involves acknowledging both commonality and difference. Deng Xiaoping's reforms in the 1980s prioritized economic interactions over political correctness. Over the last 2 decades, China has emerged as a counterbalance to US economic and political dominance without directly challenging the United States. Transnational corporations, including US ones, seem willing to align with Beijing's policies both internally and externally. This alignment may stem from political opportunism or a genuine suspicion of neoliberalism as a paradigm not only for the economy but also for society and politics. Global leaders such as Soros and Bill Gates have expressed concerns about neoliberalism, contributing to the promotion of a Chinese model of development known as the Beijing Consensus. World systems analysts propose that the center of the capitalist world system is shifting to East Asia, evident in the realignments around Beijing. However, East Asia is undergoing spatial reconfigurations due to new social divisions, challenging the notion of homogeneous national spaces. China aims to integrate with East, Southeast Asia, and the Pacific, and discussions about China, India, forming a new third world triangle reflect new geopolitical networks signaling competition for global resources. Beijing might be emerging as a center of gravity for the global south, symbolizing a Bandung for the age of global capitalism. The focus is not on overcoming colonialism or finding a third way of development, but on including the voices of formerly colonized and marginalized groups in a world shaped by colonial modernity. It is crucial, however, not to sacrifice the forging of a new global order to national power considerations as seen in the competition between China, India, Brazil, and possibly South Africa. Decentralized cooperation could be a way to overcome the urge of power, emphasizing a global consensus over any consensus tied to a nation or national capital. The search for autonomy and self-determination involves maintaining internal economic controls and adopting a multilateral approach to global relationships, diverging from the increasingly unilateralist direction of US policy. The Beijing Consensus might represent an approach seeking a new global order founded on economic relationships while recognizing political and cultural differences. Xiaoping's reforms prioritized economic interactions over political correctness. Over the last 2 decades, the PRC has become a counterforce to US hegemony, raising questions about the alignment of transnational corporations with Beijing's policies. Some global leaders express concerns about neoliberalism, contributing to the promotion of a Chinese model of development known as the Beijing Consensus. The appeal of this notion is amplified by the decline of US prestige globally, prompting a search for an alternative to the US model of global development. The concept of localization in China's global participation emphasizes the importance of tailoring development policies to local needs. It is essential to distinguish between a Beijing consensus suggesting an alternative global organization and a Chinese model addressing the specific needs of Chinese society. The former pertains to global alternatives, while the latter focuses on China's unique developmental path. Amidst the current urgency of these questions, it is crucial to maintain a perspective on the contemporary situation. While the Chinese economy has undeniably succeeded in its development, it is essential not to overlook the problems arising from this success, particularly in the areas that garner admiration. The Chinese economy faces severe uneven development spatially and socially. Pollution has become a significant issue causing public suffering, and despite wealth growth in certain sectors and the expansion of the urban middle class, the majority of the population has seen a decline in basic welfare. Despite China's ability to keep neoliberalism at a distance, its economic successes are in the end attributed to adept manipulation of the neoliberal global economy, leading to problems such as the growing influence of consumer culture, especially in rural areas. Internally, China reflects global class divisions, signaling potential challenges. It is crucial to remember that aspects of development admired by outsiders are legacies of the socialist revolution, such as the integration of the national economy, autonomous development, political and economic sovereignty, and social equality. It is important to consider that these admired aspects are not products of the current neoliberal economy, but rooted in the history of the Chinese Revolution, finding expression in the Socialist Revolution. While recent developments are used to discredit earlier socialist policies, it is possible to argue that those policies laid the foundation for China's autonomous path into globalization and secured the minimum social welfare, enabling participation in the neoliberal global economy. The future of these developments remains uncertain, but at this critical juncture, reconsideration of modern socialist policies of social welfare and integration seems necessary. Socialism, as attention to public policy against market vagaries, plays a role in determining the ends of development. The global south, rooted in earlier third world visions of liberation, has an important role in restoring human ends to development, provided it acknowledges the changed world situation without becoming oblivious to it.